Yo ho, a pirate's life and me. Are we live? Yes, it looks like we are. Ahoy there, shipmates! All of you followers of darkness, shadows, scavengers, and villainy aficionados and pirate fans. Get around, welcome, bienvenue to another live review with your good old host, Lord of Shadows, c'est moi. And today, finally, the time has come to review one of the most interesting and positively surprising Star Wars shows like that I have seen in a while. And of course, I'm talking about Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Now, to be fair, the very first time, just like when they announced Endor, like Skeleton Crew for me was one of those shows when it comes to Star Wars that at first, I wasn't quite much. I wasn't quite interested, to see it and everything. Even though I knew that John Watts, the man behind Spider-Man movies, he was behind, the show when it comes to alongside many interesting directors and everything. So but even then, I was like, okay, Jude Law is in it, and kind of, the story seems a little bit interesting and all. But for me, it just simply wasn't my cup of tea, or in this case, it wasn't my bottle of spotchka, basically. But I was like, just like with Endor, I was like, you know what, Star Wars, I'm just gonna watch it, and who knows, maybe it's gonna surprise me, we shall see. And oh boy, me old barnacle heads, did this show really surprised me. It really did. Oh my god! Like, I mean, everything from the kids, from Jude Law's character, from the overall story, the world building, with like some revelations and twists and turns. Like, oh my god! Like, this show really surprised me. I was literally, again, pleasantly surprised with the show. As I was watching, like, episode after episode after episode, I was like more and more and more reeled in, to kind of like, to see what's gonna happen, how the show is gonna end, and everything, like, So overall, Star Wars Skeleton Crew, in first impression, it was a pleasant surprise. But anyway, let's start with a review, like, shall we? So basically, the overall story of Star Wars Skeleton Crew is basically, you have a bunch of kids who live who live their normal lives at the, in the at their own like home planet called Ad Aden, and then one day basically they're united because they found like this kind of like ancient ship or whatever, and they basically flew away, away from the planet all across the galaxy, and now after all of these shenanigans, they have to find a way to find their way back home. And of course, in doing so, they did a partnership with a very mysterious character who might be or not a Force user, the character played by Jude Law, Jod Na Wood. So this is basically kind of like the story, basically. And throughout these kind of like journeys, they unveil this kind of like very mysterious myths and like legends behind their overall home planet, who as a planet holds a lot of many secrets. So basically, that's kind of like the premise of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Like, again, as an overall story, it's very easy to follow. It's a lot of the stuff in it is very self-explained. In a way, you don't have to watch anything previous. Just kind of like to understand the story better, or whatever. Basically, even just with like general knowledge that you guys can have with Star Wars is just simply plenty enough, to enjoy the Star Wars Skeleton Crew. But even if, as a non-Star Wars viewer, I can definitely see people being engaged, with the story of like of Skeleton Crew. Now the story, I know that John Watts basically, and I'm going to talk about this, a little bit later, So John Watts basically, he said that this is basically the Goonies, in space, which in some capacity it is. But overall, like the story itself, like from the very beginning to the very end, it was very interesting. I really had nothing, to complain. I mean, I would probably say maybe the story for me at least felt a little bit too simple, a little bit, But overall, it was a very, charming story, with so many like, like I said, revelations, twists and turns, references, connections, But overall, very cute at the end of the day. Now, I did mention, like I said a few seconds ago, John Watts, when he said, that he based Skeleton Crew on like, the Goonies, because literally what he said was Oh, Star Wars Skeleton Crew is basically the Goonies in space, But of course, it's not a show made for kids. Or more precisely, he did say it's not a kids show, And I will tell you, there's a lot of stuff in it that I do agree with him. I do agree that this show is not for kids. But still, I would say it's more kind of like I would say it's this Star Wars Skeleton Crew is more like a family oriented, like TV show, basically. But anyway, when it comes to references, so basically, a lot of people I've seen, saying that this is basically Goonies in space. But for me personally, this is actually going towards, when it comes to references, going towards Treasure Island, or in this case, Treasure Planet. Because like there's all sorts of elements, like with Jod Nana, with Jod's character, the pirates, the mystery behind Anne Adam, this like mystical treasure that is hidden, on this planet, a place where basically no like living being was have ever like tried to reach it, that this place is basically known just simply in myths and legends and sea shanties. Also the mysterious captain that was kind of like behind the treasure, called Tak Renard, who is basically Captain Flint, in this one. Also the overall story, when it comes to the Onyx Cinder, also the behind the droid SM-33. Like there's a lot of stuff in it that really reminds me of Treasure Island, and like even like the kids themselves, like they're basically like this Star Wars version of Jim Hawkins, basically, like all the kids, So even though, yes, I will say this, I would say when it comes to the overall Goonies, I would say the only references you have with them is basically, you have like this, like a bunch of like kids, and each and every one of them are like, are very different from the other, and kind of like, they're basically stuck together, to kind of like, on this like crazy adventure with pirates and mysteries and treasure hunting and all that. So you could kind of say that is a little bit like the Goonies, but everything else, for me personally, it's Treasure Island, But for me personally, it's for me that's a good thing, because when I heard like so many references to Treasure Island, it just made me watch Skeleton Crew a lot more, with a lot more excitement than when I started. I mean, like okay, I'm gonna try to be as spoiler free as possible. But like let's just say like from the first scene in episode 1, where you have Jod's character, aka Captain Silvo. Again, okay, Captain Silvo. I mean, come on. If that's not a reference to Long John Silver, I don't know what it is. So basically, you have Captain Silvo, guiding his crew, on this like Republic ship, try to get the credits and all that, and then basically, one of the pirates, aka Brutus, he opens the safe, and what happens? An empty room, and the only thing they had was this one little Republic credit. And that immediately brought me to Treasure Island. Like when Long John Silver said to his crew when they were trying to find the treasure and everything was gone, there was only like this big hole and everything. And they were trying to dig and dig and dig, try to find, the treasure and everything. And basically George Merry, or Tom Morgan in other versions, basically finds a little gold coin, 1 guinea, basically, and he says, "This is your treasure?" Brutus, he said the same thing, only with like, Republic credits, So again, just with the first scene brought me back to Treasure Island, but still, done in a very, very cool way, Now, again, there's a lot of other references, but I'm going to try to go like piece by piece, Now, one of the other things that a lot of people might wonder is basically the connections to the main universe, the connections to the overall shared Star Wars universe, Now, I will say this, there's not that much, like this show, Star Wars Skeleton Crew, is basically on its own. It's like basically this one closed story, with like barely any connections with like, Star Wars with the Star Wars universe, or should I say the main universe, which for me personally, it's a good thing, It's a good thing that there be like John Watts basically and the crew. They didn't want to rely on like um, they didn't want to rely on well-known characters or like certain references to the previous shows or animation or like characters like the Mandalorian, Bo-Katan, Ahsoka, or Luke, or Han, or Leia, like like, or even like Hondo Naka, like he didn't want to basically rely this show on this particular elements, which for me personally it's a double thumbs up for John Watts for this one, because like which kind of also kind of proves how much confidence he had on Star Wars Skeleton Crew, basically like holding its own as a show. So overall, I mean, again, I don't want to go into deep spoilers, but like there are some like references to the original trilogy. There are some references even, which kind of surprised me, to the Old Republic, as well, and like some certain like Jedi elements as well. When it comes to references, mentioning even like in some dialogue moments as well. And when you heard them, trust me, you're gonna know where all this comes from. But overall, I would say it's a perfect balance of like new things and like overall connections to the main universe. So again, my compliments to John Watts and the others, to kind of like again, not depending too much on the rest of the Star Wars universe, which kind of, for me personally, it's a really great thing. Now, one of the other things I will have to say about Star Wars Skeleton Crew that really surprised me is basically, as I like to call it, the exploring the galaxy, or AKA world building. Because one of the things I love about like Star Wars when it comes to like animation or live action or movies, or even video games or comic books, novels, etc. What I love is like is the expansion of Star Wars. Is the expansion of the world of Star Wars. With like many different places, different characters, different alien species, and so on and so forth. And that's exactly what I got from Skeleton Crew. I mean, like, I cannot tell you like how many aliens there are in this one. I mean, like, this is one of the greatest things that John Watts did with Skeleton Crew, just like Leslie Headland did with the Acolyte. Because that's one of the things I was asking for actually a long time when it comes to live action. Give me more and more, aliens, not just simply, humans or like humanoid aliens. Just give me like more like different kinds of aliens, and Skeleton Crew fucking delivered. When it comes to that, it was so great, so many different aliens, the ones that we've seen before, and of course there are some new ones as well. So the overall world building is also one of my great positives when it comes to like Star Wars Skeleton Crew in general. Like I said, many different planets, some different planets, different species. So many aliens, new characters. I mean, one of the damn, I can't remember her name, but like one of my favorite characters from Skeleton Crew was the introduction of like that little like owl character. I don't want to go into details like what she does, but the overall design of her, I cannot wait to see her species being explored. I cannot wait for that. Now, when it comes to Skeleton Crew, we have to talk about, of course, the kids. Okay, we have to talk about the kids. I have to tell you, the way John Watts and the others, the way how they handpicked these kids, every single one of them, they did a marvelous award-winning performance as child actors. Like, they did a wonderful job. Every single one of them. None of them, for me, did like a bad performance. None of them. Every single one of them worked. And also one of the things I was asking for is like make the kids basically different from each other, and they were. Oh my God. Like, for example, Wynn is this like high-spirited Jedi fan, who always was craving, like, to exploring the galaxy, adventures and everything. Then you have, Neil, the blue elephant kid, who was kind of like the reasonable and the most like, on Earth type of like, kid. Then you have, Fern, who is this like, badass, on the street thug, like, girl and everything. You have, KB, who's kind of like the brain of, of the entire group. I mean, every single one of them was unique. And again, I cannot praise enough, all these child actors, because like every single one of them did a great job. And one of the things I will say, I do hope I'm gonna see again these child actors, these child actors, and of course, their characters in the future, because what they did here was just simply phenomenal. Now, I will say this: step aside Grogu, because Neil is the next, fan favorite character. Oh my God! Out of all the kids, now get me wrong, out of all the kids were great, but if I have to choose my favorite, I'm gonna go with Neil, the blue elephant kid. Like, he was incredible. And also, I was even surprised, on the side note, I was even surprised that the actor who plays Neil is the kid who was in Dear Santa with Jack Black. I was actually surprised that was him, you know. But anyway, it was really cool, really cool, to see him in this, and again, every single one of them was great in the show. And one of the things I also loved is the overall chemistry. Their chemistry was flawless in this one, like from with Neil and Wim, with Wim and Fern, Wim and KB, Neil with Fern, and all of them together. The chemistry was top notch when it comes to these characters, so I can't praise them enough. I really can't, they did a really formidable job. Now, I will say this: Fern, I started to despise her all the way to episode 4. I despised Fern, but after episode 5, she started to grow on me. She really started to grow on me and everything. Which is one of the great things about these kids. As characters, they have different layers. They're not just simply stereotypically made. Each and every one of them have positives, but they also have flaws, and that's what I love about Star Wars in general, to give us characters who have flaws, and these kids are definitely one of them, So overall, I love them. I really love them in the show. But of course, for me personally, Neil was my favorite out of all of them. Now, with the kids gone and everything, I do have to talk about him. Now, I always said, who is my favorite droid in Star Wars? And I always said Chopper from Star Wars Rebels. But SM-33, oh boy, does he come very close. Because in every single episode he was in, I fucking loved him. Oh my God, I literally had a nerdgasm, when I saw SM-33 in almost every scene he was in. Having this kind of old droid with very pirate-like personality, and again, Nick Frost. I mean, what he did with his voice performance with SM-33, he did a remarkable job. Every scene he was in, he stole it. He fucking stole the scene every time when SM-33 was on scene. Oh my God! Now, there's a reason why I put Mr. Smee on this slide. There's a reason behind it, because if you put SM-33 together, you basically got Smee. Basically, with SM-33, you basically get Smee. Basically, and I was like, oh my God, that is such a nice touch. Such a nice touch, from that name you get Mr. Smee. I love that, Now, personally, as I was talking about the references and everything, one of the reasons why this show reminds me so much of Treasure Island, SM-33 is also one of them. Because for me personally, I always saw SM-33 that he's basically the Billy Bones of Skeleton Crew. Because SM-33 was with this mysterious, in the past he was with this mysterious pirate Tech Renard, aka Captain Flint, and so SM-33 was basically his Billy Bones, and all the connection he had with the treasure and with the captain and everything, so which in a way was kind of cool. So, but you can also kind of say he was kind of like the Star Wars version of Billy Bones, But anyway, SM-33, the relationship that he has with the kids, with the protocols, and oh my God, is this droid a badass? There are a few times when you see him in combat, and oh my God, does he kick ass? Oh my God, he's so good. He is such a great character, great addition to the Star Wars droids, and very close second to me when it comes to when it comes to my favorite droids. very close to Chopper, very very close. I mean, a lot of people will say, oh, C-3PO, R2D2, or the droid from Force Awakens, or the one from K2SO from Rogue One. But for me, from now on, Chopper and SM-33 are my favorite droids. Oh my god, I love them. And I really can't wait to see more of SM-33 in the future. But overall, like I said, he is a really great addition to the Star Wars universe. Great character. Now, let's talk about Jude Law's character, okay? The elephant in the room. Jod Na Wood. Now, again, there's a reason why I put those two particular characters with him, because when I was watching him on the show, like, he reminded me so much of these two notorious pirates. Like, when it comes to overall personalities, sometimes he will sound like Jack Sparrow. But most of the time, and the overall character, the way how John Watts and the others created him, he is basically Star Wars version of Long John Silver. Like the overall, the kind of like, this like very mysterious, slippery personality, the way how he connected at first, with the children, especially that the little talk that he had with Wim, which kind of reminds me of Treasure Planet moment between John Silver and Jim, in a way. And then basically later on in the story, he turns into the overall villain, more precisely into pirate mode, and he does a lot of like, evil stuff and everything. So again, a lot of different, elements of Long John Silver I've seen, in his character. Now, one of the crazy things I always was found interesting, because like Jude Law, from the very beginning, he said, he's a Force user, basically, And so a lot of people are like, is he a Jedi? Is he not a Jedi? So technically, after watching all the 8 episodes, I would say this. I would say it's a yes and no. Like, he is a Force user, but also at the same time, he's not officially a Jedi. I mean, he did have, spoiler alert, he did have a Jedi Master, but he never actually was fully trained, to be a Jedi Knight. Although now it was never confirmed, like, if he was trained like during the Order 66, or he was trained like, after Order 66. Like that was never officially explained, but the way how some details he gave kind of makes you feel like, he was trained during Order 66. But overall, Jude Law's performance of this character, like, again, Jude Law is one of my favorite like British actors today. And again, I love his performance as Jod. I loved his relationship with the kids. I loved, his overall pirate nature and the way how, he was introduced in the show and everything. I love his relationship with the pirates. Like I said, a lot of times he reminds me of Jack Sparrow, but most, like, let's just say 5%, but the other 95%, he's kind of like Long John Silver. Now, one of the questions I always had, especially watching the finale, like, is John gonna redeem himself in the end? Basically, just like, for example, Long John Silver did in a way in Treasure Island. Without giving any spoilers, I don't know. It depends, like, how you're gonna see it. For me personally, I wouldn't say he redeemed himself, but I would say, he kind of accepted his fate, basically. After everything he did. I mean, maybe it will kind of give you guys kind of like an idea, but basically, overall, that's how I would describe his overall finale moment, basically. But every scene he was in, I really liked his character. I found him interesting. And I do hope to see him, in the future, just like the kids. I do hope to see him as well, in the future. And again, with the whole Force using thing, and the pirate stuff, like, I really like his character, and also I will even go as far as say he became one of my favorite Star Wars characters, but also villains and pirates in Star Wars. And again, you can never go wrong with Jude Law. That's one thing. You can never go wrong with him. Now, one of the other things I also have to mention, which one of the things I love about Skeleton Crew, and that is the pirate's life. Like we have seen like a lot of pirates throughout, many different, areas of Star Wars when it comes to like TV shows, animation, live action, sometimes in movies. But we never saw so many pirates like we did in this one. And oh my god, I loved every second of it. Every second. So many different pirates. Now, one thing I will mention when it comes to, like, the connections of the shared universe, there is, kind of say, a little bit of a connection with like the previous Star Wars TV shows, because like there's a specific pirate who appeared in a previous Star Wars TV show, like especially in season 3. Now, if you watch that show and if you know which character I mean and which show, then you guessed it. But like, it was kind of cool to see him in this one, although I kind of thought he was going to have a larger role, but he was basically kind of like put aside a little bit. But he also had his moments, But oh my god, besides Jod, and the other pirate I really loved in the show, even though it kind of sucks the way how he ended up, but still, was Brutus, or as I like to call him, Wolfbeard. Now, Brutus, for me, he was basically the George Mary, Tom Morgan type of character, in the show, because like I said, there's so many references to Treasure Island. Now, one of the other pirates, I will say this, I was kind of surprised to see in this one, which is, oh my god, is basically Steve Urkel himself. I was really surprised that that not only that he was in this show, but he was like in Star Wars in general, And I have to tell you, he has a lot of moments, where he shines. Trust me, like, he's not just simply one, this is not just simply like one simple cameo and that's it. Like, he has a lot of scenes in the show. And again, great to see him, in this one, and kind of, basically gives him like a nice addition, besides Steve Urkel, to his overall acting legacy. So it was kind of cool to see him as well, But like, again, the overall pirate world, and they kind of like, seeing this kind of like, Star Wars version of Tortuga, which, in episode 2 was also kind of cool, But overall, the overall pirates that I've seen this show is also really, really great addition. Really great addition. But I will say this, the only one that was missing here is Hondo Ohnaka. I think like this particular TV show would have been perfect, for a character like him. And now, which kind of leads me to this, to my final thoughts. Now, overall, Star Wars Skeleton Crew, I would say, was a pleasant surprise to me. A really nice addition to the Star Wars family. Like I mentioned before, the story is very simple, easy to follow. You don't have to watch anything before to kind of like understand the story more. All the characters for me were great, like from the kids, from Jude Law's character, from like the pirates, the supporting characters, minor characters. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, I really liked, that even the kids' parents had some like moments to shine in this show. I really like that, as well. Now, one of the things I was kind of worried, alongside many others, is that, the way how the story progressed, that we're gonna kind of like move away a lot from the kids and kind of concentrate on the parents. But that was not the case. No, like they only give you just the right amount of parents moments, just to kind of like make you understand, like, oh, okay, that's what they're planning. I got it. Okay, now let's go back to the kids. But either way, I love that their parents had their moments, in the show as well. I really like that. Now, when it comes to story wise, now I will say this, even though I really like the show, story wise, character wise, and world building wise, and everything, like, but I will say, for this particular show, there are some things that for me I had a little bit of negativity. Like, for example, like I said, the story maybe could have been written a little bit more juicier, if I have to put it that way. Also the way how the show ended, I thought like, it was kind of like very unusual. I felt like, that the way how the show ended, especially the way how the finale ended, I felt like, that right immediately after some certain finale events happened, you're gonna think like, okay, there's some like more additional scenes, and then boom, that's where the show is gonna end. But no, so it ended in a very weird way, which for me is kind of iffy for me. And also the overall, there's one part about the Adams mythology that I thought was like, they could have explained a little bit more. Like, for example, like some certain fates of certain characters that happen in the end. And also, like, I wasn't quite big of a fan the way how they revealed the supervisor of Adam. Basically, I wasn't quite a fan the way how they revealed him. I thought, when I saw him, I was like, well, okay, cool, kind of a little bit predictable, but like, okay, still cool, the way how they made them and everything, but still I was kind of expecting more of it, but overall, even those kind of like nitpick negatives for me, I still enjoy the show, and it's definitely a show that I'm gonna rewatch over and over again, like I did with all the others, so in the end, I would say my rating for the Skeleton Crew is definitely an 8.5 out of 10. Yeah, an 8.5 out of 10. It's a very, it's a very worthy, it's a very watch-worthy, Star Wars TV show. Great addition to the Star Wars family. I love a lot of stuff in it. I love the references to Treasure Island more than the Goonies. All the performances were great, from the parents, from the kids, Jude Law's character, from the villains, from like the pirates, the world building, additional characters. And I loved the way how John Watts and the others, they didn't want to basically keep the show like connected with everything else, just try to keep it like very close to its own thing and everything. That's also a great addition for me to when it comes to like the overall points 1 to 10 for Star Wars Skeleton Crew. So overall, I think an 8.5 out of 10 is a perfect score for a show like Star Wars Skeleton Crew. I really did enjoy it. Now, one of the things I was wondering is Star Wars Skeleton Crew going to get a second season? Now, this particular show is a type of show that can actually get multiple seasons, but so far I don't know. I mean, I wish we can get it, but even like the way how the story ended, it kind of makes you think like, okay, that's it. Like, there's not going to be anything else, after this. But even still, the way how it ended, you can kind of makes you feel like, there's more to explore. There's more to it and everything. So I don't know. But I think like the perfect way to reveal that, it will be in Star Wars Celebration in Japan. But until then, if this is like basically the end, I'm still, going to go out satisfied with what I got. And with that, here ends another live review episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it overall. Basically, you guys know the drill. Comment, like, subscribe, give me all personal thoughts. If you have already seen the Star Wars Skeleton Crew, including the finale, what do you think about the show? Who's your favorite kid? What did you thought about Jude Law's character, the pirates, the world building, everything about Star Wars Skeleton Crew in general in the comment section down below. Man. I mean, okay, no. You know what? I'm gonna keep my overall thoughts right now. I'm gonna keep it for another video that I'm gonna do very soon. But until then, stay tuned for more videos. And like always, Lord of Shadows signing off. And as luck would have it, like always, later, fuckers.